How would I know what? They would tell you. They would say fire. You'd wait till, like I said, see the white of their eyes. And you'd shoot. Yes, ma'am. The musket. The long musket that they would use. Now, both sides had them, and most of them are light. They use the same caliber bullet. They use the same gunpowder. If you were fighting and your enemy had one gun, you picked it up and you just used his gun. Sir? The heaviest weapon besides the cannon. Probably the musket. Your musket, like the one I have, which is one of the common muskets, it weighs 18 pounds.
Okay, guys, I know y'all starting to get antsy. Does anybody else have a real important question to ask? Not information to get, that no one else has asked.
Yes, told y'all.
What do y'all tell Mr. John?
If y'all ever get a chance, pester your parents or your teachers to take you to Port Hudson for the reenactment. You'll enjoy it.
And when is that's the one in the
It's usually
November?
March.
Oh, in March.
The third week in March. They have a website. You can get all that stuff from Port Hudson.
They have a Facebook.
Okay.
Jack has a question.
Yes, sir.
What was the worst
What battle was the most dangerous one, he said?
There was a battle. I get all my eastern battles mixed up. There was a battle in Chickamauga, I think it was, where more people were killed in that battle than any other battle during the war. One of the things they had a road which was a sunken road. In other words, the ground was here, and the road had used it so much it had sunk down about 10 foot. And the Southern forces were on either side of that road, and the general for the Yankees told his men charge. And it was like shooting ducks in the water. And they had thousands and thousands and thousands of them killed. Probably the worst in Louisiana was at Port Hudson. At Port Hudson, you had a group of slaves who were converted after they were freed, were converted into soldiers. They weren't very well trained. They had a will to fight. They wanted to fight, but they weren't trained. The Yankee General Banks, assigned an officer to take care of them. The officer stayed drunk. He was never sober. He stayed drunk. And at Port Hudson, you had a large hill that the Southern boys were sitting up on with cannons and rifles. And this drunk soldier, the drunk officer, would send those, what they call the I can't remember what it is, the Afro-American group. He sent them up the mountain, and it was just a slaughter. And finally, two other officers stepped in and said, no, these men are not trained, and you just send them one right after up that hill, back off. And that was probably the worst in Louisiana. Sir?
Wasn't John Brown the one that trained the African Americans?
No. No. John Brown was way before was a couple of years before the Civil War, and he was an activist. He wasn't in the Army at all. He led no units. He was a politician.
Who trained like people that joined the Civil War to like be the war?
In Louisiana, you had an area called Camp Moore. Camp Moore is up north of Hammond, which was a big base. 25,000 Louisiana boys went through that area, and they were trained. One of the things that the South had an advantage on, most of the Southern boys knew how to use guns, whereas the Northern boys didn't. So they had an advantage of being able to shoot better. But they didn't know anything about military maneuvers. They would have to learn how to march as a group, how to attack as a group, how to do everything as a group. Now, the Texas Cavalry, they did everything by themselves. They wouldn't listen to anybody. But you had groups, you had areas where they trained you. The biggest one was Camp Moore.
Did it like go day night for like 4 years of war?
Well, they're not day and night. They would have it sometimes 3 or 4 months in between the battles. But the war went on for 4 years. But they didn't fight every day. Anything else? That's it.
So the guns that y'all would use, they were like muzzle loaders?
Yeah. They're all loaded from the top. Anything else?
Okay, what do y'all tell him?
Anytime.
Very interesting. Okay, Mr. Nathan's class is first.
Mr. Nagy.
Oh, let's, yeah.